Okay, so let's talk about 3ds Max and V-Ray and how to create this anisotropic effect here on the bottom of pans, which you're going to need to do occasionally. Not that often, but occasionally you're going to need to do one of these, and it's good to just know how to do it. So the material I've got here is relatively simple, and we're just going to recreate this here quickly. So first of all, grab a V-Ray material, and assign this. And now we're going to make this look like a metal. Make the diffuse black. Take the reflection all the way up. Turn off for now. Drop this down. My default amount. Okay, that's kind of a basic steel going on there. Okay, if you look at pans, you get various different effects similar to this. And these are obviously various different types of metals here, but it's important to just be able to create that. Now, if you look here, you can see all the reflections are stretched. You know, they're like stretched out long ways here, and they bend there, but they're stretched. On the top here, this is a stretched highlight. So the way we're going to create that is turning on anisotropy here in 3ds Max. Now it's under BRDF, and make sure, you know, if you have an earlier version of V-Ray and you don't have microfacet GTR GGX, just use Ward. But if you do, use this. Okay, this is superior to any of these three and can do all of the effects of these three. This affects the fall off here of the highlight, and so use this. This is much later. This has only been out for a couple of years, and it's a much later version of a BRDF. On this anisotropy, you can push this up and you can see what's going on there. And 1 is the highest point it goes to, but 1 basically means it's off. You know, same as 0 means that it's off, 1 means it's off. Now you never want to go this high, it's going to make it really dark. But we can probably go down to about 0.7 is about right. And then this rotation, you know, let's set that to 90 degrees for now. The reason we're setting that to 90 degrees is because if you look here, these highlights are all stretched downwards like this. And that's 90-degree rotation. You know, if you have a look here, that's 90 degrees. The highlights are stretched. And obviously, if you bring this down now, you'll see what happens here with the highlight. It stretches more or less. So about 0.7 is going to work nicely. So we have that assigned. Now, the key thing here is we're going to put on a map. And this is just for the base we're going to do first, and then we're going to do the rest of it, and the rest of it we're going to basically copy what we do on the base. You want to go to Maps, General, and under here you want Gradient Ramp. Now you take this, if you double click on here, you change linear to spiral. You'll see the effect which is created here. It's that sort of effect. And this is what is going to give us that spiral shape on there. Now you're going to put this into your anisotropy rotation. Okay, not into your anisotropy, but into the actual rotation itself. And if you look here, you see you put it in there and it bypasses this. Now, if we assign this, if we do a quick render, I'm just going to bring the noise threshold up just so we get a quick test render. Let's make sure it's not being saved. Just come in here, lower these settings. Actually, we can go down to about 900. And I think that'll do. GI, light cache, 500, fine. Okay, so here we've got a bit of a mess. Sometimes you get nothing there at all. I'm actually surprised we're even seeing anything there. But look, what you need to do, okay, is the problem, the reason it's coming out weird is because this is set to a Z-axis here on the alignment. Now, if you imagine this pot, let's just go top view. If I just get it so it's flat. So you can imagine here, the anisotropic rotation is set to Z. And so Z means it's going up and down, and this obviously is on the bottom, so we need it to go flat. So you can't leave it on Z, you've got to change it to something like X or Y. So let me just get this pan back in position for the render. Okay. So we're just going to change that to X. And now when I render, So now when I render, you get this effect. And so the problem was just the mapping was going the wrong way. Now this here is the same, we've got the same effect occurring here on the edge. Now sometimes you're going to need to map this. You know, let's say somebody else has made your model for you, you haven't got the map in the right place, and they come along and they put on a, you know, I don't know, Uvw Map, and it's basically been like that, you know. And then you come along and you've got your anisotropic filter there on it, and you render, and you're getting something like this. You know, you're like, what's going on? And the reason for it is simply that your map is in the wrong location. So in order to handle this, you have to be able to do a new map. So let's say it's been collapsed, and you come along and you go Uvw Map. And I'm just going to press Alt-Q to isolate this object. It's a bit weird because obviously the object isn't straight in any dimension. It's just, you know, been rotated for the render. But here, what you want to do is just change this to cylindrical. If you get this weird shape like this, you just go real world on and off, and it should correct it. It will go around the object. Now, if for some reason, you know, it's like that or like that, just go through your alignment until you get the correct alignment here of this Uvw map. And then what you need to do is you need to go into the Gizmo. You can either click there or you can press 1. Either one will take you in. And then you need to press S to turn on your snaps. Now we have it turned on here. If I right click on here, I get this settings, and I've clicked mine to vertex. I want it to snap to vertex. So in here, I'm going to press F3, and I'm going to snap it to that middle vert there. So just move along, and then it snaps. And then I don't really want it, I don't need it that big. It can go that big, but I don't need it that big. So I'm just going to turn this down to, let's say, 300. So we got it going around there. That's kind of a bit better. We're going to leave this at 300 because I'm going to do something else in a minute, and it'll make sense why I've put that at 300 as well then. Okay, so when you render, you might get this oddity here, something looking like this. And if you do what you need to do, for some reason I don't always have to do this, but you need to click here on cap. And if you click on cap on your Uvw map, then it should resolve it. So I'm getting this beautiful anisotropic highlights here. Now the problem is I've got this over the whole of the pan. You see it's coming up here, here, here. So one of the ways around this is you can come here into your gradient and turn off tile. So now it will only appear once, and it depends on your size of your map here. But as you see, even though it only appears once, it appears once here and then it sort of goes to the edge of the 250 or whatever. I've got a radius a little bit larger than the bottom there, so it goes, the radius goes a little bit further. And I still have this problem here. If I want to resolve that, what I need to do is change this Uvw map, make that map channel 2, and make this gradient here map channel 2. So now this is on its own channel. And then what I'm going to do is go into the edit poly and just make sure, you know, the correct assignments are made to the polys. So I'm just going to Alt-Q to isolate this, and then go into subobject 4. I'm just going to reselect these. So I'm going to press F3 so I can see what I'm doing. Press F2. Okay. So I'm just going to select here. What I've done, I've turned on, you know, normally you just get one poly. So you click ignore backfacing, biangle in your polygon selection. And then this by default is 45. But if I leave it at 45 and I select, you know, I can get an awful lot of selection. I don't necessarily want that many. So I just reduce this down, in this case to 1. Maybe you need to put it at 5 or something like this. And I click here and I get that. And that's really all I want it to be applied to. So I want there, and then I want the same on the inside. So I'm going to press Control, click on the inside, and I get the same. Now I'm going to make this ID number 1. I'm going to press Control and I to invert my selection, and this is going to be ID number 2. Now because I've done this, I now need to get a multi-material on here. So I'm just going to take this map, right click here, change material map type. I'm going to go General, Multi-Subobject, keep old material as submaterial, and now this is automatically assigned here. I'm going to click on here. I'm just going to change the number here to 2, just so you know I'm not getting confused. There's not lots of other materials in it. just click on that on its own and shift and drag, and I'll just get that one down. Put that straight into number 2, turn that off, and now when I render, I'll only see this right here. The rest of it will have anisotropy, but it won't be affected by this. So this is just highlights here and anisotropy. Now if you want, we can add some brushed metal to this, and I'll show you how to do it, just because it's a little bit different here than if you would normally make a brush metal and use a noise map. So what we're going to do, get this render a little bit higher just so we can see it and make it a little bit cleaner so we can see the noise when it's coming in here. So I'm just going to put this noise threshold down to 0.01 for now. We'll reduce that probably to 0.005 I think when I re-render it, and I'll make this 1920 by 1080. Now the easiest way to see what we're doing here with a noise map is if I take this, and I'm just going to turn on for now, and actually I'm not going to do that. I'm going to grab a new material, a V-Ray material, and I'll assign this. And then I'm going to grab a noise map, and I'm going to plug this straight into the diffuse slot. And then I'm going to double click on here, and this, this now is completely different because this noise needs to be mapped to this map. The map here, it needs to follow the rings, the concentric rings need to follow the anisotropy here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take the UVW, and we have it set like this. And we're going to take the noise map, and we're going to change it from object to explicit map channel. And we're going to leave that on the same map channel as this UVW. Okay, and that's map channel 2, so this has to go to map channel 2. Now, in order to see something, we're going to take this tiling. I'm at 0.01 and 0.01. And I have no idea what this threshold size should be, so we'll just do a quick test render and see what we get. And I've got absolutely nothing going on here. And I'm going to try 1. Still getting nothing. I'm hoping I'm going to luck in at some point. Let's try much lower. We're going to go 0.001. The only reason you don't see a noise map is either it's too large or it's too small. In this case now, we're getting about right. If I put this back to 1 and 1, let me just see what I get. Alright, now we're seeing the noise here. See what happens if I do 0.001 on this. Let's see what we get. Okay, I'm getting that. Which means if I come the same way on this one, I'm getting nothing. I know why I'm getting nothing. Okay, we're going to take this UVW map. Let's copy this. Let's paste this. The reason we're getting nothing here is because it's capped. So we're going to set this to map channel 3. We can turn off the cap. We're going to change this noise and make this map channel 3. We're just going to do a little test. And we get beautiful concentric circles there. Alright. Now, what we need to do now, we need to adjust this. Basically, this size is just too large. So, we put another 0 here on the size, and then render, see what we get. Okay, now it's too small. It might be fine, actually, when we do it on a higher resolution. So let's try that for now. We can always adjust it later. Great. Alright, so we're going to see that. I actually am going to reduce it. I think we're going to see it better when we reduce this down at a higher resolution. So we're going to reduce that. What we're going to do is plug this straight into the reflection map, into the reflection glossiness, and into the bump. And now, I'm going to change the size again, just so you can see what's happening. Oh, let me assign it first. You get it way too dark, and the reason is the black here on this noise is black. And we don't really want it to be black. This isn't selected properly, is it? Let's come back here. I just noticed that I haven't selected this bottom properly. I need to grow this. See there? See the edge? I'm just going to grow this one, and that should be correct. Okay. Now what we're going to do is I could come in and I could change this black and make this much higher. And that would, if I could do it about there, and then I render. That's one way to kind of do it. But I don't really like that way so much. What I'm going to do is take this, bring this back down to black. You know, I can tweak that back and forth and change it. But the other thing I can do is if I look here in the material, you know, when these weren't in there, I quite like the metal as it was. So what I'm going to do now they are in there is I'm just going to come here into the map slot and I'm just going to reduce the effect they have. So I'm going to make this reflection so it's only 10%. I'm going to make the glossiness so it's only 10%. So it still has a slight difference but not as much. I'm going to make this bump and I'm going to make this like 3. So it still has an effect but just not as much of an effect. And here you can see, you know, we've got that brushed metal effect here going on. Now if we want to make that occur for the rest of this, which we can do, that's fairly simple. We're just going to stop this here. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to try this. We can take this noise and we'll plug this and we'll make the same settings on this material. So we can plug it straight into the reflection, straight into the reflection glossiness, straight into the bump. And then we're going to take these maps and we're going to make them 10. And we're going to make them 10. And we're going to make them 3. Now, the problem here for the rest of this is it's not mapped. So I imagine this is not going to look correct. Not here, not on the side. See? Oh, you're getting something going on here. What we're going to do is make a duplicate of this and plug it in. And what I'm finding I'm looking at here is the handle. So to correct this, because it's doing a correct job here on the side, so the handle here needs to be a third material. So if we go edit poly 5, we can just select the handle, select this base, and we can change this to make this material 3. And then we take the multi-sub object, we add another one here. Okay, by default it throws in a standard material and it throws something, and you can just delete that. I'm going to shift and drag this and plug that into number 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to take this rotation and I'm going to set this amount to 90 degrees. And then let's just see if that fixes it. And that's fixed the handle. Now to test this, so we can see what we're doing and see, make sure this noise is turning out correctly. You know, I don't want to do a high level render and then have it come out incorrectly. So to test it, what I'm going to do is just get another, just drag that up, plug this into the first slot, drag it down, plug that into the second, and I'm going to plug that into there, and I'm going to plug the same one into the third. Nope, it's only assigned it to there. Just do Control Z to undo that. Come out of sub-object mode, then assign the material. Otherwise it will only assign the material to that item which you've selected. So the brushing here is still going along that way, which I don't really like that much. And the reason for that is this is still set to map channel 3, so it's being mapped by this radial one here. So at least now we can see what's going on. And we're quite happy for map channel 1 and 2 to be done that way, you know. But the handle, not so. So for the handle, just shift and drag that and put that into map channel 3. Bring that down, put that here. And then I'm going to change this and just make that map channel 1. And then let's see what happens with this handle. Okay, so we're getting this oddity going on here. Okay, bear in mind this is done from a previous, this is from a previous UV, and you don't know what this UV is that the person's put on here. So I'm going to put an edit poly on there, and then I'm going to go into 5, and I'm just going to make sure that I do have these items selected. And then I'm going to put a new UV on them, and I'm just going to click box, and I'm going to change this to 200, 200, 200. And then we're going to do a render here. Okay, we're seeing nothing there. We're going to double click here. We got this on explicit map channel 1. So let's try size, put a 1 there, see what we have. Okay, cool, we're getting that again. So we're going to stop that. Try 0, 5. Now because this is on explicit map channel here, you know, these affect it. So I can stretch this. It should stretch that out. You know, this says explicit map channel. By default it's on object XYZ, so just set that. So let's put that back to 0.001. We're going to take these ones, make that one 1, make that 0.001. See what happens here. Great. So that's stretched the way we want it to be stretched. It's possibly a little bit too big, so let's come down in the size to 1. And it might be stretched a little bit farther. Okay, that's stretched all the way along there. Let's make this 5, 5. And often you'll find yourself with noise maps, you'll be adjusting these and adjusting them and trying to get them to look right. So that looks okay. I could reduce this more. We can try 0.01. And then you can see the variation here coming in, and you can see those brush strokes coming in and how that changes. Okay, great. So now we know that this is going correctly and the way we want it. What we can do is get these into the correct slots here. Okay, and then we know that we've got all this correct. We just need to reassign this metal material. Make sure we come out of a subobject. Oh, here. One more thing here. When you get to this stage, what I normally do is I right-click and I collapse the model. If you don't want to do that because you're worried about you might need to go back and change things later, best is just put another edit poly on top and just leave it like that. You don't want to be leaving it in subobject mode. So you don't want to leave it here. This UV is only applied to this edit poly, to this element of the edit poly, to the arm here. So you don't want to be leaving it in subobject mode like this. So you've got to come up to the edit poly here. You can just put another one on top or right click, convert to edit poly. And then we're going to reassign the metal material. And we're just going to render and see what this looks like. Okay, we can see how it looks pretty good. Just so you show you some differences, I'm just going to rotate this. And if you rotate it the other way, you can see them going the other way as well. Okay, there's two other things here which you need to know. First of all, here we've got this steel, and on the local axis, I've clicked X. And if I'm rendering this right now, you know, you get the anisotropy here coming along in this angle here. Now, if I click Y, it'll reverse, and it'll come straight along here. So that's one way you can control that effect. Now you can't put it on Z because Z goes up, and like we said earlier, you just won't have any effect here at all. You know, now it's just going up and down, and you're only seeing it here on the bump, and it looks weird. So that's X and Y. But the other thing which you can do is you can come into the original Uvw map here, which was assigned, and you can rotate this. So in order to do that, you need to go into the rotation gizmo, which is right here, and then you need to change this from view to local, just so it's doing it on the correct axis. And then you can just grab this, go into the gizmo, and you can just grab this yellow one and rotate that. And you'll see the anisotropic effect here starts to rotate. So now it's coming down there. And you can really rotate this to any kind of degree you want, you know. It's up to you. And that's how you affect the anisotropic reflections here and the way you want them to go. So let me see, I think something like this. Yeah, I think that's nice. And that's how you affect those. That's how you can set where you want that to go. I'm just going to come into the material editor here, make some other slight changes. I'm going to change all of these down to 5. I'm going to make the bump 1. And the result should be that you see it, but it should be very, very small. Okay, and that's how you get anisotropic highlights in 3ds Max and V-Ray. And we're just going to render this out, high resolution for you, and make it look nice.